What method do you use to actually compare yourself from who you were yesterday to who you are today? And I don't know if you would recognize yourself on the street if you passed yourself. Like, would you actually recognize who you were? And I don't know if we all would. And it reminds me of a story I read about a guy who was in a hurry trying to get through a town. Had an appointment he was trying to get to. And so he's driving a van through town, and he almost sideswipes a bicyclist and comes to an abrupt halt in a traffic jam. And so he's in a hurry, so he jumps out of his vehicle and he finds a bicycle and jumps on the bicycle and rides the bicycle as fast as he can to the appointment, where he almost runs over a fellow crossing the street. So he gets to his destination, parks the bicycle, and runs across the street, and is almost run over by a bicyclist. Now, this is a strange story, because essentially it's a sci-fi story about a fellow was all three people. He was the guy who drove the van, and who almost sideswiped himself on a bike, and he was the guy who almost ran himself down as he tried to cross the road. Is the same guy. And he didn't recognize himself. Only when he actually stopped and thought, hey, wasn't that me in that van? Wasn't that me in that bicycle? That he actually recognized that it was himself. And he didn't recognize himself. So I think we're all quite similar. We wouldn't recognize each other or ourselves when we meet our future or past selves. We would just keep on going. We would walk right past, and we wouldn't even know who we were. So how do we actually determine how we can measure our past self to our current self? And so what kind of rubric are we going to use? Because if you don't have any kind of measurement, then everything you decide is just subjective, right? And it depends on how the day, you're doing great if you feel good the next day, and you're not doing so great if you don't feel that good. And so you need some kind of method of measuring where you were yesterday to where you are today. And so you need a rubric. Now, I don't know exactly what rubric you're going to use, but here's some 3 good ideas. The first one is to stop now and fix your position. Because you can't compare where you are going to be tomorrow unless you know where you are today. You have to figure out where you are. If you're in the middle of the ocean and you're trying to get to shore, unless you know which direction to go, where you are, then you're not going to be able to get to shore. You're just not going to get there, because in any direction is just a guess. So stop, fix your position. So you have to know where you are. You have to know which direction you're going. And if you figure out where you are and which direction you're going, then you have to be then able to determine, identify what the current position you are in. Now that if you figure out where you are, which direction you're going, then you're much more capable of making progress, right? You can now say, I was here yesterday, and today I'm here. I've made a step forward, or I've gone backwards. Second one is to have a definite goal. If you don't have a definite goal, then it doesn't matter what you are yesterday to what you are today. There's nothing to compare yourself to, right? You have to determine what your goal is, and then you can say, when I have this goal, then I've moved forward on this goal and I've made progress. So you now have a marker, and you provide yourself some motivation with a goal, right? You're actually wanting to go somewhere. And finally, it's easier for you to develop some kind of routine or action that is going to get you to your goal, right? If you're floundering around because you want to be fit and one day you do some calisthenics, and the next day you go for a walk, and then you do some weightlifting, and then the next day you decide to sit on the couch and watch TV, and you're not focused. You have to stay focused, and once you have a goal, I'm going to be able to run 5 kilometers, then now you can decide what actions you're going to do to get you to that 5K run. Or I'm going to be able to lift this much, or I'm going to do this many push-ups. Whatever the goal is, now you have an ability to do those actions that are going to get you there. And thirdly, you have to decide on a specific course of action. So we talked a little bit about this already. If you're going to do push-ups, then how many push-ups are you going to do? When are you going to do them? How are you going to do them? These things are important to know, because if you don't have a course of action, then you're not going to be able to get your goal. And so what would you like to accomplish? What do you want to become? These are the things you need to think about before you decide to just go off and set some random goal. Decide, what do I want to become, and what do I want to accomplish? Because if you have those two things down, then you know that you've fixed your position, and you have a goal, and you have a method, a course of action in which you can achieve that goal. And now that you've got those 3 things in place, you can go off and you can go decide, you have a good rubric to compare yourself from who you were yesterday to who you are today. You can do 10 push-ups, and you can say, I did my 10 push-ups yesterday, and I can do my 10 push-ups today. And next week you can say, hey, I'm now going to do 11 push-ups or 12 push-ups. Whatever it is, you have a method of measuring, and when you go back and you can say, hey, I actually have got better. That's the point. Once you start seeing improvement, then you get more motivated as you go along.